Live from Big Sandy Community and Technical College, a U.S. Senate Democratic debate.
Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce to you the president of Big Sandy Community and Technical College, Dr. Devin Stevenson.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Majacek, and good evening. I am Devin Stevenson, President and CEO of Big Sandy Community and Technical College, and on behalf of the entire college community, I want to welcome all of you to our Prestonsburg campus for tonight's forum for Democratic candidates running for U.S. Senate nomination for 2016. Thomas Jefferson said, "An educated citizenry is a vital requisite for our survival as a free people." Tonight's forum is just one part of that educational process and a vital component of our college's mission of civic engagement and education. In addition to workforce development and scholarship, we are committed as an institution to promoting the notion of civic responsibility in our students, our faculty, and staff. In essence, we are stewards of our democracy. Now, please join me in welcoming Dr. Tom Majacek, who has so passionately and capably led the design and implementation of tonight's candidate forum. Dr. Majacek.
Thank you very much, Dr. Stevenson. Each candidate will now deliver a 2-minute introductory statement, beginning with Ron Leach. Mr. Leach.
Good evening, I'm Ron Leach, and I am running to be your voice in the U.S. Senate. As your U.S. Senator, I will represent Kentucky families, our veterans, senior citizens, and the best interests of Kentucky and our nation, drawing from my experience as a combat veteran, a former Army Green Beret, a former farmer and high school agriculture teacher, a current practicing physician assistant, a husband, father, and grandfather. Over the course of 30 years nearly, I wore the uniform of our nation, served our nation, and I lived the Army values of loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, and personal courage. And those same values will be my compass as your U.S. Senator. I am running to ensure that our children and our grandchildren have the opportunities of prior generations, the opportunities I had, my parents have. I'm running to put people ahead of partisanship and to put governing ahead of ideology. I know we're better than the last several years of partisanship, gridlock, and brinksmanship. As your U.S. Senator, I will be working with Congressman Rogers, Speaker Stumbo, Governor Bevin, the SOAR bipartisan initiative of shaping our Appalachian region, and any other leaders or organizations willing to work together to bring resources to Eastern Kentucky to finish the Mountain Parkway, to ensure that we have broadband connectivity to the farthest reaches, to ensure that we have access to affordable health care for all. I'm running to be your U.S. Senator because we need leaders and not looters in Washington. That'd be a nice change. We need a Kentucky in America that actually works for all of us again, and we need functional government that actually represents all of us again. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Jeff Kender.
First of all, I'd like to say I appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight, and I appreciate this forum. And I'm running the Common Man campaign. My whole life has been a fight and a struggle, and it's very good to return home here to Prestonsburg Community College because I finished up here through the Moorhead to Prestonsburg initiative. So I know the value of this community college and the value of it to our citizens. And I know the value of education, period. I got an 11-year-old boy sitting out there in the audience, and I worry about his future and all of our kids' future. And because of the dysfunction in Washington, that was one reason why I got into this race. And also I believe that Rand Paul has not done his job as our senator. Someone needs to replace him, and I hope during this debate that I can prove to everyone that I am the person to replace Rand Paul. Now, telling you a little bit about my background, I am currently a United Steelworker. I work 12-hour shifts, and I'm still running this campaign as hard as I can with some of our great volunteers. Also, my father's a retired United Mine worker, so there's no candidate that's any more pro-union than me. I think Mr. Leach over here got a union endorsement, said he is the strongest union candidate, but I just want to correct you on that, sir. Okay, also, I did graduate from Morehead State University, and like I said, it took me a little while to graduate through Morehead because I've been a single father for 10 years now. And my son is my life. We got to break the gridlock in Washington. And I'm seeing the card that my time's up. But I am the strongest candidate to beat Rand Paul. Once you guys look at my issues, I think you'll agree. The Washington establishment has had both parties going in polar opposites. And it's a mess. You got the Tea Party on one side, and you got some, and I hate to say it, but there's some crazies in Washington on the Democratic side also. I call it the establishment on both sides. I'm very anti-establishment. But, okay, I'll let somebody else go ahead and speak.
Thank
now.
you very much, Mr. Kender. Mr. Sellis Wilder.
Thank you. And I'll also thank Big Sandy for giving us the opportunity to talk today, and also thank all of the other candidates for being here. I agree with Thomas Jefferson that an educated citizenry is vital to an informed democracy, and it's really important that that we all show up for these debates and that we all share our platforms with the public. We hope that Grant can make it, of course. The rest of us released an open letter to Mayor Gray earlier this week requesting that he share his platform with the public and that he join us for debates in each of the 6 congressional districts. And I was really proud that the 6 of us worked together on that. I think that it's really inspiring to see candidates actually working together instead of trying to tear each other down. And we do hope that Mayor Gray joins us as this campaign moves forward. My name's Sellis Wilder, and I'm running for the United States Senate because I believe in a brighter Kentucky. I'm running because our children deserve clean water and healthy lives and secure futures. I'm running because I believe in a nation that values the lives of people more than we value profit and power. And I'm running because we need Democratic candidates who are ready to be open-hearted with the public about where we stand and who aren't afraid to truthfully address the challenges we face as a Commonwealth. I'm running to help the many Kentuckians who have been left behind by our economy, from the coal fields of eastern and western Kentucky to the inner cities of Lexington and Louisville and everywhere in between. I'm running because we need candidates who aren't afraid to be honest with the public about where we stand, even when those conversations aren't easy to have. And I've done this before as a city commissioner and mayor pro tem of Frankfort. I brought unprecedented levels of openness and transparency to your capital city. We recorded all of our meetings and posted the videos online so that everybody could see exactly what we were doing. We became the first city in Kentucky to incentivize recycling. We got lots of things done that lots of folks thought were impossible to do at the time. But that's the essence of this campaign. It's an underdog campaign, but I want everybody to believe that the impossible is possible and that Kentucky can have a brighter future if we all work together for it. And I would appreciate your consideration on May 17th. Thank you.
Mr. Wilder. Mr. Thomas Rechtenwald.
Thank you. I've been asked several times, why should I vote for Tom Rechtenwald? And here's my response. I think we should elect candidates who have a proven history of being men or women of great character, rather than those who will make a lot of promises that they won't be able to keep. If I knew of a candidate who spent the first 30 years of his adult life in civil and military service to the U.S. Navy, who is a union member for nearly 40 years, serving in countless leadership positions, who answered the call to go to Belize to build a home for a homeless family, ate peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for Thanksgiving dinner, and paid out of pocket for the cost of the entire trip, plus the cost of the building materials, a candidate who answered the call to come to Appalachia to make home repairs for some of the poorest of the poor. And while there, the folks I was working with learned I had computer skills and was called to conduct summer computer camps for kids and I did that 3 straight summers up here at the Auxure Center right up the road. And at the end of each of those camps, the kids who participated each received a free computer to take home. Who, as a school teacher, when there were no funds to replace a broken refrigerator in the teacher's lounge, made an anonymous donation of a new refrigerator. Who, over the last 3 years, has voluntarily prepared free tax return service for more than 400 Kentuckians with the AARP tax aid program. And who will 3 or 4 times a year pick out an old rundown car in a gas station and offer to fill the tank for the driver. And this is really a selfish move because I get far more out of that than the person getting the free gas does. Who believes that big money donations is the biggest problem that Congress has, and it has resulted in a broken Congress. Therefore, my campaign will not take any money in donations. Whose campaign slogan is never me, always us, and means it. And who, when seated in the Senate chambers, will ask for a little more room than normal because it won't just be him sitting in that chair, but there's going to be 4.5 million Kentuckians sitting there with him. And who is happiest when helping someone in need. Then I would vote for that candidate. I'm sure you figured out that I just described Tom Rechtenwald, and that's why I hope you'll vote for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Rory Houlihan. Mr. Houlihan?
Let's see if I know how to do this. No, I don't. So let's just do it this way. My name is Rory Houlihan. I'm originally from Waukesha, Wisconsin. My honey bunny moved me up to Kentucky. She's from eastern Kentucky. You may know where Greasy Creek is, some of you who may not. I just tell everyone she's from Corbin, okay? We've been here about 21 years. I've worked at Lowe's in Winchester, Kentucky for about 17 years. I have done kids programs all my life. So I was a head coach in soccer. I was a coach for soccer up to U14s. We've done group work camps. That's when you have teenagers build or repair homes for elderly people. I have done Lowe's kids programs since 2001, Boy Scouts, Pinewood Derbies since 2007. I'm running because I see that our kids, our bright new days, future is being taken away from them. You are the bright new days for our country, okay? I see that we have a student loan system that will make you indentured servants by not allowing you out of that loan if whatever breaks out in our economy, okay? I want that to be changed, okay? We have 2 economic systems, okay? We have a worse and worse game and a better and better game. Being in retail for 17 years, I know that as a fact. You have basically the always lower price game. You may also have it called, thank you, now you've got me, inferior goods game. The superior goods game is, of course, better and better educated, better and better products, a better and better environment game. We're better off playing the better and better game instead of the worse and worse game. Unfortunately, most of our economy is based upon the always lower price game, and we'll talk about that more.
Thank you very much. We will have our first question, and in honor of the many wonderful women that I work with as faculty members here at Big Sandy Community and Technical College, I'm going to allow Andrea Sadler to ask the first question.
Okay. First of all, thank you for having me here. I talked to some of my coworkers to come up with some questions that I would like to ask you all. And one of the things that is really relevant here in Eastern Kentucky is, of course, the loss of the many coal jobs that we've had here in Eastern Kentucky. And it's put a really hard strain on not only on my family as well, as my husband worked in the natural gas industry, but, you know, other family members as well. So what is your plan maybe to support and increase funding for the development of the coal industry? Do you have any plans to maybe replace those jobs or do anything for those displaced workers?
Mr. Houlihan will answer that question first, and then we'll move to his left, Mr. Rechtenwald, then Sellis, so on and on. So, Mr. Houlihan, would you like to deal with that
Again,
question first?
back to the better and better, okay? We need to start by educating our kids, but also we need to, like in Salersville, they have a lovely industrial park, but they don't have the money to build their buildings to bring in the businesses.
The infrastructure,
The
yeah.
infrastructure itself. Okay, so what we need to do is, as a government, be able to apply low-cost loans to the local community, okay, at, say, the federal government gets their bonding at about 2% and do it at 4%, okay, and allow them a grace period, because almost all building constructions are what's called front-end loaded, in which you have the costs right up front, okay, but the payoff is down the road. And because of the front-end loading, if I turned around as a federal official and started demanding you pay me back right away, that would be a failed system. We have to be able to make these loans to local communities directly, and not go through the state, because that's a siphon off and that's a redirect, okay? And we need to make those loans to be post-dated. Once the tenants come in, then the payments start, okay? That is the most fair way of doing these things. And that would apply also for infrastructure such as Flint, Michigan's water system and such. So this whole funding scheme could be applied to the whole of our infrastructure, and our local communities could take advantage of that, and it'd be a direct to the local funding instead of going through the state.
Mr. Rechtenwald?
I would look at the coal industry, and not being from Eastern Kentucky, I don't know the issue nearly as well as you do when you live here. But I would, as your senator, I would support subsidies to coal production with one caveat. It has to be clean coal. You can't be chopping the tops off of mountains and running the poison down into the streams and expect the people down below to say thanks. It just doesn't work that way. I can't tell how many thousands of jobs in the industry have been lost. Again, you all know that better than I. And unfortunately, the likelihood of them coming back is pretty small. So I would encourage this region to start looking into other industries as well, such as sustainable energy and that kind of thing, and even what's been referred to as the sin industries, hemp, medical marijuana. I would support anything to get those things going. There's been a lot of talk about casinos. Of course, that'll be decided at the state level, but there's a lot of Kentucky money that's going out of state that could be kept in state. And a casino in these hills, I think, would be a very big financial success to the area. Could create a lot of jobs. And I would also encourage wineries. I mean, I love to go visit wineries. My wife and I do that 5 or 6 times a year, and all over Kentucky, but there doesn't seem to be any in this area. And it seems to me that would be a good tourist industry to get involved in, wineries and distilleries. But again, back to the coal, we'll do everything we can for you, but at the same time, it's like my son used to work at a cigarette factory, and he had a great job. And when he went there, we thought, well, gosh, he's got a good job for life. Well, nobody smokes anymore, so he's been through 3 or 4 jobs, so I do kind of understand the problems that are there. But I would vote to help the coal industry as well as I could for as long as I could.
Thank you very much. Mr. Wilder?
Thank you. It's a good question. I think one of the real challenges when talking about coal in Kentucky is the fact that we don't have statewide leaders who are willing to be honest with the public about the true challenges that we're facing. I mean, we keep getting statewide candidates like our likely Republican opponent, Rand Paul, who keep selling this myth that if we can just get rid of the EPA, that our old way of life is going to come roaring back. And that's really a shame, because he knows that isn't true. I think most of us here know that that isn't true. I mean, the factors, environmental regulation has certainly contributed to the decline of the coal industry. Everybody recognizes that. But the truth of the matter is that the other factors that are more responsible for its decline are inevitable and largely irreversible. We're talking about reduced demand from China. We're talking about OPEC's strategic release of their oil reserves, which was done expressly to depress American energy markets. The fracking boom has in its own way contributed to the decline of the coal industry, and the fact that we've already been mining it pretty hard, and so a lot of the newer coal seams out west in places like Colorado are just more cost effective. And so there's only so much we can do to really address that problem. But the real shame of the folks like Rand Paul who keep selling this snake oil myth that we can just magically fix everything if we slay the dragon, the real shame of that is that that denies actual new opportunities and new hopes for these regions that need them. Because these families and these communities, your family, I mean, you all have given your land and your lives to our entire state's economy. And the entire state, our manufacturing industries have all benefited from the cheap energy that have been provided from these regions. And it's sad to see the folks have so little left to show for it now. And my sense is that we owe your family, we owe these communities a debt at this point. We owe them a debt. We owe all of you a debt. And so my platform is centered heavily on economic development incentives for land reclamation, for infrastructure development, for solar farms, which are a great use of strip mine sites, and the good jobs that come along with those developments. So I think there's a whole lot we can do to help the economy in this region, but that's not going to happen until we start being honest with the public about the nature of the problem.
Thank you very much. Mr. Kender?
Okay, I come from a long line of coal miners. My dad, grandfather, great-grandfather, and living in Pike County or in Rowland County most of my life, there's no candidate that knows more about the coal issue than I do. For one thing, there has been a slight overreach of the EPA. Another thing is, I'm not going to sit here like Mitch McConnell and Rand Paul and promise you that I can bring coal jobs back. After all, Mitch McConnell's been the leader of the Senate. Rand Paul's been in for 6 years. Al Rogers is Appropriations Committee leader in the House. And they've all promised you jobs, just like he told you. They've all promised you, oh, we're going to bring coal jobs back. We're going to bring coal jobs back. But it just turns out to be they don't deliver, right? So I'm not going to sit here and promise. I can tell you I will fight the overreach of the EPA. And I can tell you that 90% of Kentucky's electricity comes from coal. And I can tell you I'm sick and tired of watching all my friends' neighbors move because there's no jobs here. And they either move downstate toward Georgetown, beautiful place, love Scott County, love Georgetown, but some of them have to move plumb out of state. So I got a cousin that moved to Bowling Green to continue working in the mines. And I'm a Democrat, but the Democratic Party in Washington has went too far on coal. We import coal from China anyway. Why are we doing that? You know, the coal industry has been under attack. And with me, you'll find out that there's a lot of issues. I'm the only candidate that said that I will help introduce the Appalachian Infrastructure Bill. Also, I plan on fighting for the legalization of marijuana, medical marijuana, and hemp. There is a fortune to be made in the hemp industry. And I do mean a fortune. And look at all the land we got, farmland. And all it is to do it. 1 acre of hemp produces as much paper as 4 acres of trees. Why are we not doing it? The pharmaceutical industry don't want it done, right? And also I'm for rehab instead of jail for nonviolent drug offenders. Let's legalize marijuana. Let's grow hemp. And still, let's fight for our coal industry. Because coal is going to be used in the United States for quite a while, whether anyone likes it or not. So, that's what I got.
Thank you very much. Mr. Leach?
Thank you, Andrea, for the question. Some have already touched on the realities of coal here in Kentucky. As he mentioned, we actually import coal to Kentucky from other states to fuel our power plants as it is. So even within the coal market such as it exists, we have a competitive disadvantage. More so, unfortunately, here in eastern Kentucky than in western Kentucky, where it costs approximately 2.5 times as much to harvest, extract what is left of our accessible coal seams. So that's reality. Add to that the glut in natural gas, which has come about with new technology and fracking, which Mr. Wilder and I will both say has brought its own host of problems and possible concerns, but nonetheless it exists with a glut of natural gas. When you want to couple conventional fossil fuels with new renewable energy sources, you need a power plant that can ramp up easily, ramp down quickly. Gas has an advantage of that. Add to that the fact that renewables are becoming cost competitive even without government subsidies with fossil fuels. There's another hindrance going forward. These are the realities, unfortunately, with coal. And as Celis and others have said, any politician is going to stand to you and say that we're going to bring back all the coal jobs that have steadily declined over the last 30 years is being dishonest with you. So what is the solution? I think Secretary Clinton's plan that she ruled out October, November timeframe was one of the most comprehensive plans I've seen for addressing what's going on in our coal communities, not only here in Appalachia, but even out west. Calls for a $30 billion investment in these regions, calls for protecting and guaranteeing the pension funds that are being abandoned as these coal companies go belly up. Of course, our senior senator voted to not to help shore up those pensions. Invest in education, free public education for affected communities for higher education. Investments in infrastructure and innovation. Now, the bottom line is your family, sir, and other Kentucky families for generations have sacrificed their health, their lives to fuel the great American economy.
That's right.
We will now not stand by and watch them be collateral damage to a shifting, changing economy. As your U.S. Senator, I will fight to ensure that you are invested in and valued and paid the due respect you have for the sacrifices you have made for this country.
Thank you, Mr. Leach. Well, we've been joined by Grant Short, and I would like Mr. Short to answer this question, but he's a little bit of a disadvantage because he didn't hear it. So if Ms. Sadler would please, in a very condensed way, repeat her question, and we'll let Grant address it.
Eastern Kentucky has been devastated with the loss of the coal industry, and it's affected many people in our community. Do you have any kind of plan to revamp the coal industry or bring another kind of industry to where families, like Mr. Kinder said, don't have to move out of the area?
Sure. Yeah, that's a big part of my platform. Unfortunately, there's been less than 4,400 jobs in Kentucky in the coal industry since the George W. Bush administration. So this is not a new thing brought on by like Obama's EPA or something. This is something that's been a market trend for a long time. Part of it's China being able to make things a lot cheaper. They can't make the kind of steel and metals that we can, but a lot of companies are willing to kind of start curbing on the quality they're willing to take, so that's been part of it too. So a big part of my plan would be retraining. If we don't accept the market trends and work towards them, when or retrain people at great places like this technical college, for like the natural gas industry, a lot of my friends that work in the coal fields, West Kentucky, even there's a lot of strip mines that have opened up, some of which are now shutting down. They consider themselves extractors. They don't really care what they're extracting. You know, I'm not a big proponent of fracking. Like you said, it brings a lot of other things with it. But I mean, right now they're fracking for oil in a lot of ways that are similar enough that the environmental impacts are hard to argue that they're not at least the same. So I think what we need to do is retrain people for the natural gas industry. We need to work on our infrastructure. So we need to help CSX upgrade its trains, its railroads, its bridges, so they can handle it. Otherwise, if we don't do this, we're going to have out-of-state companies doing it. I don't know how many out-of-state contractors you probably see working on the roads and stuff like that. Every time you see an El County plate, that's just because there wasn't, either they outbid someone or there wasn't someone available in state. So we got to make ourselves available in state. So that really is my biggest thing, is to kind of look at the market trends and kind of work towards them.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Short. Neil Middleton will be asking the second question. Celis Weiler will be answering it first.
Thank you. Three of the largest expenses for the elderly are vision, dental, and hearing, yet Medicare doesn't provide assistance. Do you support expanding this coverage for the elderly? And how do you propose paying for this in light of the current $19 trillion national debt?
Well, thank you. That is a good question, and I'm glad you asked both parts of it, because on one hand, absolutely, I support expanding Medicare and Medicaid to cover more Americans and more conditions, including everything you just described. The question is, how do you pay for it? And so other parts of my platform include finding the cost savings that we have in various parts of our budget. I know this is often a third rail of politics, especially with national security concerns. But the truth of the matter is there's plenty of waste and fraud in our military budget alone. I mean, we just spent $500 million on 20 planes, transport planes in Afghanistan, and within a year we scrapped all but 2 of them and sold the scrap for $32,000. I mean, our military budget is replete with stories like this, and one of the real shames, and not to get too off topic, but one of the real shames about the waste and fraud in that particular budget is that we're funneling lots and billions and billions and billions of dollars to private contractors and for-profit industries, and we're failing to meet the basic health care and mental health care needs of the service people that actually make our armed forces strong. And so my sense is that we could save plenty of money in various areas of our federal budget. And I also support ending tax loopholes that allow multi-billion-dollar corporations to avoid paying any income taxes at all. I mean, 15 of the Fortune 500 companies didn't pay any income taxes within the last year or two. Xerox didn't pay any taxes. GE didn't pay any taxes. Time Warner didn't pay any income taxes. So we need to get rid of those loopholes. And if we need to raise taxes among the wealthiest among us to cover some of these things, to actually take care of the people in our country, then so be it. We could tax our wealthiest friends more, enough to cover these things, and they would still end up paying less than they did under successful Republican presidents like Dwight D. Eisenhower. So it would be through a combination of cutting out waste and abuse in our budget, and finding more revenues where needed.
Thank you. Jeff Kender, would you like to tackle that question?
Oh, sure. Of course, I would be for Medicare and expanding Medicaid for our seniors. And the way to do that is to close tax loopholes and to tax millionaires and billionaires a little bit more. Punish companies that send jobs overseas. Cut out a lot of the foreign aid. Why have we got our own veterans and our own people living on the streets, and we send countries like Saudi Arabia millions of dollars, or maybe perhaps, I mean, I don't even know the total. I mean, some countries it's up into billions, and we're letting our own citizens sit and be out in the street and our own veterans, and we're not. And it goes far beyond our seniors. Of course, what does it tell about us if we don't take care of our seniors? But it also goes to our veterans. It's a shame. I've got a lot of friends that went to Iraq and Afghanistan, and so I've been hearing a whole lot about the poor VA system we got. That's another thing that we got to tackle. We got to take care of our veterans. You never send somebody to war if you're not going to take care of them when they come home. And we do need to take care of our veterans, and it's simple. Mitch McConnell and Rand Paul, they turned down they will not raise taxes on the millionaires and billionaires. That's their puppets. I mean, it's just like McConnell and Paul stuck at the hip. I mean, somebody needs to call Ben Carson in and separate them or something. It's disgraceful. I don't know. But as long as we got these Republicans with these ideas that there's no way we're going to raise taxes on the rich, they only want to lower taxes on the rich and stick it to the working man, no. It's disgraceful and totally distasteful what our United States senators has done, and it's time to break that 24-year losing streak. And if you guys look at my issues and my platform, you'll see that I'm the strongest candidate to beat Rand Paul.
Thank you very much. Grant Short, would you like to tackle that question?
Yes, sir. Yeah, that's a great question. Like, especially how to pay for it. That's always the million-dollar question. You hear a lot of people, tax millionaires and billionaires, and I think it's important to talk about why. 90% of all, not just, but wealth over the last 15 years is concentrated in the 1% of the economy. So you hear the 1% thing a lot, but why does that matter? 40% of the economy has been taken out of the expendable income. So people going to Olive Garden, people going to Red Lobster, Walmart, Sears, Kmart, as you can see from their sales. If you don't, all that money, the 40% of the money has been taken out of the expendable income and gone into investment money. So it's no longer part of the expendable world. So that's why we have to tax these millionaires and billionaires, as people say, in order to pay for these programs. It has become so lopsided in order that seniors can get dental care and eyeglasses, while, you know, the upper scale of that is so much the opposite. So I think it's important for people to understand that it's just not something trivial to say we got to tax these people more, we got to make things more equal. It's important to understand our economy is functioning with a 40% chunk of it gone, and people are expecting the same results. That's why the only growth in jobs are in healthcare, trucking, and retail and other things like that. So it's the third chunk of the economy is what used to be the whole economy. So in order to deal with things like that, yes, we are going to have to tax the 1% and 2%, you know, as I call it, trickle-up economics. We tried trickle down, and it totally failed everyone. So we're going to have to reverse the process. So yes, I would deal with it, and that's how I would pay for it.
Thank you very much. Ron Leach?
Yes, I guess the original question was as far as enhanced Medicare, dental and vision, correct?
Dental, vision, hearing.
Yes.
And how would you pay for it?
Absolutely. I would advocate for an expanded and enhanced Medicare, and for that matter, I'm kind of a fan of Bernie Sanders' idea of Medicare for all, going towards a universal health care finally in the United States. We spend about 18% of our GDP for health care and deliver a result that, according to the World Health Organization, ranks us about 32nd in the nation, right there with Costa Rica and Cuba. Doesn't seem like the best use of our money. And as far as paying for it, first off, it'd pay for itself because we would gain in several different areas. One, we would have a healthier, more productive workforce. I work in occupational medicine right now as a physician assistant, and I do fit-for-duty physicals for folks all the time, and I see them come in with multiple comorbidities, things that should have been treated or have been intermittently treated that have been left go where they are now unfit to the workforce. Had we invested and we provided that care and made them able, they would be productive, returning to our tax revenue, and that pays for itself. Second, our current system makes us less competitive as a nation compared to other nations. Every other first world industrial nation has a universal health care. The burden on our small businesses and businesses that our competitors do not have to face. As General Motors and Chrysler were going into deep trouble during the 2008 Great Recession, part of the problem was that before they put a second of time, an ounce of material into a vehicle, they already had a legacy cost of $2,000 to $2,500 in legacy medical expenses that their competitors don't have because of our employer-based health care, which is a loophole legacy from World War II that has outlived its time, and we need to move on to universal health care. And finally, on the matter of national security, about 3 or 4 years ago, the Department of Defense raised the red flag and said, hey, you know, our prime recruiting age population of 17 to 23-year-olds in the United States, less than a quarter, 24%, meet the initial physical standards to even get a foot in the door to possibly be the candidate for our armed forces because of the dismal state of our medical system, health care, preventative meds.
Thank you very much, Mr. Leach. We have to move on. Mr. Houlihan?
Okay. What most of you don't know is that our economy is facing about $1.72 trillion in what's called shrink. That is, shrink in retail is losses that occur before you make any income, okay? 1.2 trillion is because of right to work laws. Right to work laws actually have a very negative effect on our whole economy. It basically attacks the corporate structure at the level of the vice president. Corporate raiders like Mitt Romney had figured out that if they got rid of the company man with these right-to-work laws, that they could basically do what's called a cap and slide. Basically, they take the most able men of that corporation, get rid of them, put in their own cronies at half the price, and slide everybody else's wages down because that person now is the ceiling for everybody else's wage. Okay, over time, that creates a huge headwind for that economy, but also for other states' economies. Okay, there's both direct and indirect costs. Those are the headwinds that are actually holding our economy back from growing because it negatively affects demand. Without demand, there can be no supply. I worked 17 years in retail. Okay, I've seen lots of products come in and go out. Okay, this is a absolute. Demand is supply. Okay, now, when to pay for something like Medicare and Medicaid, a lot of this is because of people's income. Okay, but understand, the whole Medicare system was based upon people's income, their income. If we're doing a cap and slide, what happens to your income? It goes from here down to here. You have a longer period in which you are government dependent. Again, negative income flow from the federal government to the state, okay? And a total lifetime negative impact on your income ability.
Thank you very much, Mr. Houlihan. We're going to have to move on to give Tom his chance to answer. Mr. Rechtenwald?
Yes, I've been retired from the civil service with the U.S. Navy for 21 years. And for each of those years, I've enjoyed the benefit of the Federal Employee Health Benefits Program. It's fair, it's affordable, and in my opinion, it should be open to anyone who wants it. Again, maybe the Medicare, the Medicaid, Obamacare, and Federal Employee Health Benefits, maybe we could take the best parts of all of those and meld them all into one and make every American available, make that available to every American. Ron, you mentioned about the military budget. I've often wondered, and I've never heard anybody broach the subject, but why do we have to have all these different branches of the military? Why does the Air Force need a fighter jet and the Navy need a fighter jet, but they're different? I mean, why do they have to have different fighter jets? What if we could blend our armed services together? I know you get a lot of feedback or backlash from them if that happened, but that's something I would look at. And as far as the taxes, I'm definitely for tax reform. I mean, let's just scratch it and start from the beginning and build it back up, because there's no question that the wealthy are coming nowhere near paying their fair share. You pay, I think it's about 6.5% on your first dollar into Social Security, and those who reach the wage earning of $118,000, that comes off. They don't have to pay that anymore. From after that first $118,000, from then on, if they make $1 million or $1 billion, they don't have to pay that 6.5% into Social Security that you and I pay from day one. So I'm certainly for tax reform and blending those health programs into one.
Thank you very much. Our next question will be by Mary Meadows, and she'll be directing that question to Jeff Kender.
Well, thank you. During the last election, a lot of Floyd County residents were shocked when a Republican won the governor's seat, because this county was the only far eastern county that remained loyal to the Democratic Party. I'd like to know what you want to say to all those Democrats who've switched parties or who plan to swing Republican in the next election. I'd also like to know whether you voted for Obama during the last presidential election.
I'll answer the final question first. Okay, we had Obama running against bomb Iran. You remember that? In 2 wars, who do you think I vote for? Obama. Okay, next time we had Obama running against a guy that feels the need to put a garage in his house to raise his cars up and down. Who do you think I voted for? Obama. Okay. I'm not a coward like some of the other Democrats. I feel like a lot of Democrats has lost their backbone, and I believe in telling it the way it is. Now, your first question. What was that first question again? Before if I voted for Obama?
What do you want to say to all the Democrats who switched parties?
Oh, well, I'm sorry to all of them that switched parties, because they could have voted for me on May 17th. Because I got the best chance of beating Rand Paul out of any of these guys. No disrespect.
No, I agree.
Mr. Leach down here, he lost by about 40 points in his Congress race last time. And I would vote for Mr. Leach before I would vote for Rand Paul. Do not get me wrong. But he's just not electable. And I'm the being pro-cannabis and pro-medical and hemp. Rand Paul's going around saying don't lock people up because of marijuana. I haven't heard any one of these candidates say that. So he's going to lose these people are going to lose the liberal vote also to Rand Paul, besides the conservative vote. It's about not only about, it's about the issues. Okay, I'm pro-coal, all the above energy approach. You look at Joe Manchin of West Virginia, the senator, that's kind of my energy approach. Immigration, people will consider me conservative on the immigration. We've had an immigration problem since the 80s, and I go for immigration by need system, where we go by our labor report and we get the people that we need, be it surgeons, engineers, field workers, whatever, and we go to E-Verify. Now, I am for raising the minimum wage to $10 an hour. I am for body cameras for police. I'm for I'm a union worker myself, and I'm very pro-union, the strongest union candidate by far. I still pay my union dues. And, you know, I'm exactly right on the issues to beat Rand Paul. There ain't nobody here talking about Rand Paul. That's who's going to be running in November, is Rand Paul. Okay? People needs to get Mr. Shut Down the Government, Mr. Audit the Fed. He's a chameleon. One day he's a libertarian, one day he's a conservative, one day he's a Republican. I don't even know what he is. But I would like to know what he means when he says don't lock people up. Does he want to send people to rehab that you know, has marijuana? What does he want to do? And Mr. Gray, that's not here tonight, he does need to put a platform out and not try to win by just being the establishment's pick.
Thank you very much. Mr. Short?
Yes. One part of your question, I did vote for Obama. I was a young college student when he first started running, and at that time I went around and did a lot of campaigning and stuff for him. You know, I was a naive guy. I didn't know what it was going to be like to campaign for the first black president in Kentucky, and you know, it was definitely a colorful experience and one I'm proud of. And yeah, I definitely voted for him and campaigned for him, and you know, it was an interesting experience for sure. And as far as what I would say to people who switch, first thing I'd say is enjoy the caucus, because that should be interesting. The other thing I would say, which is interesting, you know, like Rand Paul says he paid for that, but it's actually only split between him and the Kentucky Party. I mean, so it's interesting. It's so funny to me that he's not even in it. It just says a lot, kind of about how much of his campaign to me is about himself, the whole presidential you know, and then he stayed. It kind of quantifies how everybody are sick of politicians and establishment, I think. So what I would say to people that have switched or maybe frustrated with Democrats and stuff, I think a lot of what you said is right. A lot of backbone hasn't been shown. You know, people that supported things their whole lives are willing to back down when the Republican Party hasn't, and you haven't seen kind of that matched fervor. Not to mention there is a 24-hour station that kind of says it all is evil. I don't think that helps. But just, I would say to them, just try to think about the economics of your household. If you are making, I would say, less than $500,000 a year, there's no reason you shouldn't be voting Democratic unless it's purely on morality issues. Then I would have to, you know, that would be a different discussion. But, you know, so what I would say is to, you know, like put all the politics aside and look at your bottom dollar and just see who's representing that bottom dollar. And right now it's Democrats.
Thank you very much. Mr. Leach?
On the first question, 2008 I voted for President Obama, and 2012 I voted for President Obama. On the next question, I would say that the folks who switched party were not Democrats of conviction, but were Democrats of convenience when they thought that was to their advantage. And so you'd have to question what they really believe for and stand for. Maybe we're just not doing a good job of explaining why we are Democrats. Now, a lot of times when I'm out addressing folks and giving speeches and I lay out my background and my experience as a combat veteran and all that, I get some questions of, and you're a Democrat? And I don't understand the confusion there, because I look at it this way. You know, since the mid-'70s, we've had a volunteer army, volunteer military, and folks that join are usually from working class families, poor working class families who went in, yes, idea of service and some patriotism, but a lot of times it's because that was their best opportunity to get a chance to get an education, to get their feet under them, get it, make a living. And when they finish their tour of service, whether that be a single enlistment of 3 years or so, or whether it be multiple combat tours or a career in the military as I did, when they return home, they should have the expectation of being able to earn a living wage, and that's democratic values, and therefore I am a combat vet and a Democrat, and there's no contradiction there. When I was an Army Green Beret, our motto was De Oppresso Liber, liberator of the oppressed. Again, I think the other side would be hail to the plutocrats and winner take all. I'm sorry. I see, again, more consistency with democratic values. Within our military, across all branches, we have solemn obligation oath that we carry amongst us that we leave no one behind. A little bit different in the military, that we leave no one behind, but within our society, the democratic values have been we leave no one behind. We give everybody an opportunity. We help create opportunities. We lift everyone up, and we're all stronger together. Therefore, I am a Democrat and a soldier, and there is no contradiction.
Thank you very much, Mr. Leach. Mr. Houlihan?
Okay, most folks, I am in a district which is mostly Republican, okay? It is so much fun to go to a candidate's home place and say that you are the OFA representative for that county. After he gets done blasting Obama, and you just smile at him, and you say, you're a Democrat? That's our president. Okay, first thing, the two games. Who do Democrats stand for? Which game? Education. Better and better. Understand that all recessions start with the poor and end with the poor. For 40 years, we didn't have a recession. And the reason why we didn't have a recession, folks, was that we gave systematic minimum wage increases. Because, see, the poor start recessions and they end recessions because they are at 100% spending, okay? So they have no forgiveness to fall back on. So immediately they go into debt. So the first ones to feel the pinch of price increases out of a recession, they're the first to go into debt, okay? If you give them a minimum wage increase, they don't go into debt. Let's take a look at what happens at the end of a boom-bust cycle. First, you have a consumption collapse. Then you have a financial collapse. In other words, the poor have stopped spending and they're now totally tapped out, okay? And then you have a loss of confidence in our economy, so all the money stops, and then you have business closes up, and then you have massive loss of labor, okay? If you want to stop recessions, you give out minimum wages, plain and simple. If you want to not have a recession this coming couple years, you give a minimum wage increase. Now, Mitch McConnell, 17 times voted against a minimum wage increase. Do you think Majority Mitch is willing to do it again?
We're going to have to move on. Mr. Rechtenwald?
Yes, I'm proud to say that I did vote for Barack Obama in 08 and 12, and I'd vote for Michelle this year if she were running. But having said that, I'm going to vote for the Democratic candidate no matter who she is. And in answering the switching parties, to me, it shouldn't even be legal. The candidate or the officer who does that should be forced to pay back the party whatever funds he took from them. But I'd like to talk about campaign donations again. I mentioned that I will not accept any donations, and that's really the thrust of my campaign, is that the big dollar donations is what has broken Congress. And as long as we just let them keep doing that, then it's going to stay broken. What my selection for your senator would be, if I'm elected, it's going to show the rest of the country that it is possible to do this without money. There are untold number of candidates out there who would be excellent candidates, would be more than willing to run until somebody says, well, how are you going to raise $3 or $4 million? And right away, see ya. But believe me, there are people far better, probably than any of us on this stage, who would be willing to run without having to go through that distasteful task of having to raise money. And so again, elect me. That's the catalyst to do that. And also, the women and minorities in the crowd, I wish you'd kind of take a look around here at your candidates here. Something missing? If I'm elected, the next time when Mitch McConnell's up in 4 years, I guarantee you that there'll be women and minorities on this stage. I will work very closely with all of those groups. My daughter is very active in the women's movement and keeps her foot in my butt, kicking me all the time. Dad, you got to do something for women and minorities. So I promise that, yes, that'll be at my forefront. I want to take care of homeless people, and I want to come up with a solution for these drug-addicted kids. We've got a serious situation in my family that we're dealing with.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rechtenwald. We'll have to move on. Salas, would you like to?
Yeah, I would love to answer this question. It's actually my favorite question of the evening so far. And I think the two questions actually relate to each other very well. So first of all, yes, I did vote for Obama. And the fact that we have 6 panelists up here who are saying that in a state where he's very unpopular, we've already demonstrated more courage on that issue and being honest about that vote than our average statewide candidates. And now I live in Frankfort, and so I know a lot of the folks high up in the party. I know a lot of the folks who encouraged Mayor Gray to get into the race, for example, and a lot of them are not happy that I'm in the race because they're afraid that I'm going to cause trouble, and they're not half wrong. But I keep having this argument with the party, which is, so this thing we keep doing as Democrats where we keep competing with Republicans to see who can be the most conservative and who can bash the president the most, et cetera. Not only do we lose that contest 9 times out of 10, if not 10 times out of 10, but we make the problem worse when we do that. So we send this message out to the entire Commonwealth that those are the only values that even matter. And so half the reason I'm in this race in the first place is to at least get up here and preach a different set of values and show that it is possible to run as a progressive in Kentucky. And I want to unite the progressive voice in Kentucky. And that's why I'm here. And a lot of people, I think, are really ready for that. They're ready for Democrats who aren't afraid to be Democrat.
Thank you very much.
I could go on and on, but.
Mr. Davis, I would like you to direct your question to Grant Short.
First, I want to thank all of these gentlemen for coming tonight, and I know many of you had to drive several hours to get here. I thank you for your commitment to running a statewide campaign. We touched on health a minute ago, but I want to turn to a different aspect of health, and that is public health. In study after study, whether it's statewide or national, Eastern Kentucky always trails the pack. We have the highest rates of obesity, heart disease, cancer, diabetes. Here in this community, the Big Sandy Diabetes Coalition described the incidence of diabetes in Floyd, Johnson, and Magoffin counties as a crisis of epidemic proportions. I guess my question to you is, what role can the federal government play in helping to promote the healthier lifestyles in Eastern Kentucky?
Great. Yeah, good question. Thanks for it. I think this plays out to a larger issue as well, which is how do we address some of these issues with Rand Paul's model of the federal government? We cannot. Look at what Governor Bevin's doing with the Kentucky budget. We can't even pay for education right now. So I think it will be up to the federal government to do the things you're talking about personally. My wife, she has a degree in public health. So this to me is something that's close to home. It's something I'm passionate about. I'm also kind of a numbers guy. So, and with my roots in East Kentucky, all this kind of comes together and it's something I'm passionate about. The only way that I think it's going to happen is to start with kids. We're going to have to expand health coverage in East Kentucky. We're going to have to get more people, nurses in homes. We're going to have to expand funding for that. And like I said, we can't do that with Rand Paul's model of the federal government because it doesn't have that role in his version of the federal government. Another part of this, I think, would be the opioids and other addictions that go on, like especially, like I said, with prescription stuff. I personally knew a young man I grew up with across the street from me that died from this out in East Kentucky. I think it's something that's ravaged the economy. It's ravaged the area, and I think it's in part from the economy, the isolationism, in part from the fact that there is no state budget to deal with these things, and then no one from the federal level has stepped up. I mean, Hal Rogers has been kind of a vocal champion, but the legislative measures to do anything about it haven't been there. I personally have seen it firsthand, and it's a big part of my platform to deal with them. And yes, I do think it has to be dealt with, and I think on the federal level it will be the only way to do it, in coalition with the CDC and other organizations. And like I said, you're going to have to, in an area like this where there's so much isolation, we're going to have to get more home health workers and people into people's homes. There's a lot of old-fashioned doctors coming up now. I just heard a piece on NPR not too long ago in East Kentucky.
Thank you very much, Mr. Short. Mr. Leach, would you like to field that question?
Yes, sir. With diabetes, heart disease, everything else you listed, you definitely have to list drugs as an epidemic here in Eastern Kentucky and across the country. Continuity of care and access to care, even with the gains that were made here in Kentucky with the implementation of the Affordable Care Act, we still have a long way to go. And we went from 20% uninsured down to, I think, 7.5% uninsured. But the problem is you still have folks who, on paper, have insurance, but access to care is still not there. I received my training as a physician assistant while in the military, owed 4 years continuous obligation to serve after my training to pay it back, continue to serve beyond that. I would say that to expand access to basic primary care, we do a similar program out in these communities and other underserved and underrepresented communities to where we train up physician assistants, nurse practitioners, other mid-level healthcare providers, and they owe an obligation to serve in communities such as this, so that not only do you have Medicaid or Medicare, but you also have access to care. I again see on a daily basis with the patients I see on occupational health side, folks that have things that should have been treated, should have been continuity of care, should have been able to easily be managed by a basic primary care provider, but they don't have continuity care, access to care. These things then snowball into multiple comorbidities to eventually where they are unemployable, very expensive once it becomes a medical emergency. We save money in the long run. We are more competitive, and we are all better off if we can provide something such as a Medicare for all and universal health care.
Thank you very much. Mr. Houlihan?
Okay. The death do us part drug addictions that we have is because of a game. The government has decided that game back in 1972, and we've gone through one after another death do us part drug addiction systems, okay? One another. It's a failed system, okay? We need to decriminalize drugs, okay? That's the easiest way. Decriminalize the use of drugs, but not decriminalize the sale of drugs, okay? And maybe slowly evolve the system so that marijuana is no longer illegal to manufacture, okay? First as a medical aid, because it is a very good medical aid, okay? And then as recreational, okay? Number two, obesity is due to poor foods. Again, to the always lower price game, which is the game of worse and worser and poorer. Today we give subsidies to foods that are worse and worser so that they're cheaper and cheaper for our people instead of giving the subsidies out to the better and better food. I raise chickens. I know what it takes to raise chickens and what my costs are to raise those chickens, okay? And I can tell you that I often sell my eggs at lower than what I have put into. part and parcel of being a small producer. Okay? To recoup my costs, I would have to sell eggs at $7 an hour, $7 a dozen, and I sell them at $3 to be competitive with stores. Okay, number 2. Aging populations are going to naturally need more and more help, okay? And long chronic hurts and owls often become debilitating, as Mr. Leach has pointed out. I can tell you from my own personal experience, my honey bunny fell off a ladder working at a major place called Walmart, and they couldn't get her off the medical assistance faster.
We're going to have to move on to the next candidate.
Go for it.
Okay, I'm going to go back to the single-payer health plan, which I think we really need. It's the only fair way for everyone in the country. I talked about the federal employee health benefit plan that I benefit from, and it is affordable. It's a great plan. I actually even feel a little bit guilty about having access to it when others don't. So let's all get together and make one health care plan. And one thing that my wife and I, just the start of this year, our government employee health insurance came up with an online program to help us to live healthier lives. How to eat, how to count fat grams, how many salt grains are in each item that you eat. And it's been a kick in my rear because I've been carrying way too many pounds for a number of years. And I got on a scale on January the 1st, and I weighed 194 pounds. And I looked that up on the body mass index, and that was like a 28 for me. And you have to be no more than 25 to be considered in the normal range. Well, for me, I had to get down to 175 pounds. I got on the scale this morning, and I weighed 181. And I put this suit on this evening that I haven't worn in about 6 months, and you'll see me with my hands in my pockets holding the pants up because they want to fall off of me. But again, if we could all have the same plan, the same access to those kinds of programs, it'd be a big benefit to us all. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wilder?
So when it comes to obesity, the obesity epidemic, particularly among young people, I have put a lot of time and study into this. I've served on a task force in Franklin County that actually did achieve some gains in this area. The problem is really twofold. It's a matter of nutrition. It's also a matter of lack of physical activity. And a lot of the problem has actually been caused by the federal government inadvertently by imposing such strong curriculum standards on schools that there's no time left for physical activity during the day. So one of the things we did to really good effect in Franklin County was actually just set up programs that could incorporate into curriculum, but that encourage at least 5 minutes of activity every day. Jumping jacks, running around, walking around. And what we found was that actually improved the educational standards, because when you get the kids' blood flow going, they're more engaged, they're happier to be there, they pay attention more, and they actually perform better academically, even when you're taking those few minutes away from their school day. But it also makes them a lot healthier. And of course, nutrition standards matter too. And just to step back a little bit and look at the big picture, I mean, I agree that expanding health coverage, and I'm in favor of universal health care. I agree that that actually covering these conditions once they exist is important. But what's really important, if you want to stop the epidemic, and the same is true for for the painkiller epidemic, et cetera. If you really want to stop the epidemic, you've got to figure out what the root source is, and you've got to lean into preventative measures rather than just treating symptoms once a problem develops. And so the steps that I'm outlining here regarding obesity could actually solve the problem generationally going forward. I mean, it's important to treat the problem when it exists, but it's more important to make sure that the problem doesn't exist in the first place.
Thank you very much. Mr. Kender?
Okay, you can't really control what people's going to put in their bodies, and they're going to do what they want to. This is a free country, but I do think that we ought to invest in education for the children. I was a physical education teacher for 2.5 years. We also need to bring physical education back inside the classroom. And we need to also have a lot of free information at our health departments. And there's something I got to bring up since I got so much time since I answered that question. Rand Paul got on CNN and MSNBC several times about 2 days before the filing deadline. He got on there and blatantly lied and said he had no opponents. At the time, me and Mr. Reckenwald and Mr. Short had already signed our name to the line. Also, he had 2 Republican opponents. So I guess if you're Mr. Paul and you're not a millionaire, you don't mean anything. And so Mr. Paul was all big, bad, and bold, and when he was running for president, challenged Bernie Sanders to a one-on-one debate, right? So this is Mr. Kinder, the common man, flipping the script on Mr. Paul. There's all kinds of media here. I'm hoping CNN, MSNBC, Chris Matthews, Rachel Maddow, Lawrence O'Donnell, Morning Joe, somebody picks this up and let Rand Paul either take the challenge of debating me one-on-one or being a coward. And I think he'll pick being a coward after finishing 5th in Iowa and dropping out and having 3 super PACs, you know. But anyway, just like he was bold enough to challenge Bernie Sanders, Rand Paul, I'm challenging you. Any place, any time in this great state of Kentucky. Let's go. I am right on the issues, and people are sick and tired of Rand Paul and Mitch McConnell's way that they run Washington and try to run roughshod over the people. Most of the people live paycheck to paycheck. And I represent the people. I'm going to be your voice in Washington, D.C. I'm going to be the man that beats Rand Paul in November. So Rand Paul, answer me. At least give me a no. And there's too much media for you not to get this. If you want to call Bernie Sanders a coward for not debating you when you was running for president, I will definitely call you a coward for not debating me. After all, tonight is my first debate.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kinder. Since I'm running this thing and my feet are tired, I'm going to do a little deviation that I hope you'll enjoy. What we're going to do is a flash answer period. And in this flash answer period, each candidate on one side of the room will have 30 seconds to answer the question that is proposed. So Mr. Davis will ask the first question of the gentleman on this side of the table. Mary Meadows will ask the second question to candidates on that side of the table. Neil, you'll ask this side of the table. Andrea, you'll ask that side of the table. Again, 30-second answers, and we won't test our audience. We won't try them any longer. But Mr. Davis, do you have another question you'd like to ask the candidates on this side of the room?
I'll keep it simple. It's one or the other, Hillary or Bernie.
Okay.
And I'll accept I'll accept neither, but I won't accept either.
Okay. 30 seconds. Tell us why.
All things being equal, I'd say that I really favor Bernie's platform to the extent that, and I do like them both, but to the extent that I think we do have a nation that values corporate profits more than we value the lives of real people, and that's at the root of many of our problems, and I think that needs to change.
Hey, thank you very much.
I've said for a number of years that the world would be a better place if all the countries had women for presidents, and I sincerely believe that. And the reason I believe it is women wouldn't send their babies out to war. That's simple. So yes, I'm going to vote for Hillary and support her all the way.
Okay, the honey bunnies for Bernie, definitely, and me, I'm actually for Hillary. Okay, I voted for her last time she ran for president, and I liked that she's been the old workhorse. She has done so much during her years, and I think it's about time that she gets elected.
Okay, thank you very much. Mary Meadows.
Thank you. As senator, would you be able to compromise by voting against something you strongly support because you see that the end result will be better for the American people?
30 seconds, Ron.
30 seconds. That is how we used to govern. It used to be based on compromise. We didn't used to have the brinksmanship and the standoff and the my way or the highway. I am for reaching the 80% solution. The imperfect but 80% solution allows us to move forward, even if that means that I have to give.
Grant?
Yes, I think that's the crucial part of making public policy, and I think that's what's been lacking over the last decade almost, technically. So yeah, definitely would, to me it's all about the people's interests first, what you do for the least of these, so that would be the main driver of my policy making.
Jeff?
Yeah, you got to compromise sometimes to get things done. I mean, sometimes a little something is better than nothing, and there's no compromise in D.C., and that's pretty bad. So our founding fathers set our government up with the judicial, legislative, and executive branch. and it's supposed to work, and it functions as long as there's not gridlock and, oh, I'm not going to vote for anything that the other side votes for, filibuster this, filibuster that, shut down the government today, and whatever. So, yeah, you got to compromise. Compromise gets things done.
Okay, thank you. Neil Middleton,
What is your position on gun control in relation to our Second Amendment rights?
30 seconds, Mr. Houlihan.
Check and balance. I'm for the gun control. Let's see. The Second Amendment, first three words are A, well regulated. Second, last four words is A, shall not be infringed. Okay, let's see. The NRA said to criminals having guns shall not be infringed. The NRA said to terrorists having guns shall not be infringed. The NRA said to having psychos have a gun shall not be infringed. Well, we kind of need to have a couple well regulated to make sure that we have. Instead, no guns in the criminals' hands. A well-regulated would take care of that. No guns in psychos' hands. A well-regulated may help with that.
Thank you, Mr. Houlihan. Mr. Rechtenwald?
By choice, I do not own guns, but I will stand strong in favor of any of you having the right to own the guns that you need, as long as you're lawful, law-abiding citizens. And I would like to sit down with the NRA and the powerful gun lobby and negotiate with them to try to jointly find a way to stop these mass shootings, especially in our schools.
Thank you. Mr. Wilder?
Well, this is a hard one to answer in 30 seconds. I do have a strong libertarian streak, and I am in favor of defending each of the 10 amendments in the Bill of Rights. The Second Amendment is trickily worded, so it clearly calls for the regulation of militias. I don't think that I would go that far. But I think that some reasonable measures are important. I don't think we need to take anybody's guns away, but I think keeping guns out of the hand of violent criminals is perfectly legitimate. You need some degree of background checks if you're going to achieve that. But having said that, I mean, it's part of our nation's history. I think that it was put in the Bill of Rights for good reason, and I certainly don't think we need to take law-abiding citizens' guns away.
Thank you very much. Andrea Sadler?
Yes, what I would like to know is a group in Louisville has recently been formed called Kentuckians for the Use of Medical Marijuana. And with Kentucky being the third in the nation for overdose, I'd like to know what your stance is on the use of medical marijuana.
Jeff Kender, 30 seconds.
I am for legalization of marijuana. I'm 100% for medical marijuana, and big pro hemp. There's a lot of money to be made, and I'm saying that people should be able to grow on their own land. So yes, I'm pro medical marijuana. We got a bad opiate problem and heroin problem and everything in Kentucky. So yeah, I'm 100% behind it. It's because of the pharmaceutical industries and the prison lobby is why we don't have the medical marijuana. So yeah, 100% behind it. Why not? It's crazy not to be.
Thank you very much. Grant Short, 30 seconds.
Yes, even though it's not a state office, I would still like to see Kentucky get the same benefits that Colorado has gotten. So to look at giving states an option to do that on a federal level. I mean, look at Kentucky's budget right now and look at what Colorado's been able to do with the same budget, which was like ours. When they put it, they were trying to figure out how to pay for schools and pay for cops and firefighters, and we're trying to do the same thing. And I think it's a choice, and if people want to choose to do something in the privacy of their own home. I mean, I was in D.C. recently, actually to help. I was there when the president signed his executive orders on gun laws. So when I was there, it was legal, so I was trying to smell it the whole time. Never smelt it, never saw it, never saw any head shops, never saw any hippies.
Thank you very much, Mr. Short.
But that was
Ron Leach, 30 seconds.
First off, we do have a role to play at the federal level on this issue. Right now, marijuana is listed as a Schedule I drug, right up there with LSD, heroin, crack cocaine, drugs that, quote, have no medical or efficacy in use. That is a problem that needs to be properly categorized. We are locking up too many hundreds of thousands of our fellow Americans for marijuana possession, nonviolent crimes. We can't afford it. There is valid medical use for marijuana and marijuana extracts, and I would be for legalization of that, and I would leave it to the states to regulate as far as recreational use of marijuana.
Thank you very much. There are some thank yous that I must give out. This would certainly not have been possible without Clayton Case, who worked very, very hard setting up this stage, setting up the speakers, everything else. Dr. Stevenson was wonderful. When I requested this project, he didn't hesitate. And certainly, Josh Ball did a lot of the advertisement for this and got word out to the papers. I want to thank all of the journalists and the candidates who came with us tonight. I'd ask them to remain on the stage for just a little while because I think there are some photographs needed. And then I would encourage all of you to interact with the candidates. For you members of the press, certainly there are classrooms available if you'd like to take out one candidate or the other and do interviews or ask specific things. And you students, if you would like to talk to them, I would encourage you to do so. So if you would, please give all of these people a big round of applause. And Dr. Stevenson, if I could have you come up to the front, and Josh Ball wants to take a couple pictures. And just the formal part of the presentation is over, and I would like to thank all of you for showing up tonight. If you'd like to stick around, you can certainly talk to the candidates individually and ask them the questions that you would like. I'm sure they would be happy to answer them.
Thank you.
Thank you.